Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, from race to recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm great, Kenny. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. We are in the lair
lair.
Tri-Tom R.
We made it to the shop. We're here at the Fit Studio.
The Fit Studio. You can get bike fits. You can get all sorts of stuff going on. Some 3D stuff.
Got a lot of
Crazy stuff.
Going on.
Had my bike here before. So,
Yep.
so we've had a heck of a year. This is our kind of our year in review program, just to kind of talk about the podcasts that we've done, people we've talked to, and kind of our race recap for the year.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about ourselves, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're business people, we're podcast hosts, but guess what? We also do races ourselves.
Yeah.
So, and I think you mentioned, we've hinted more than a couple times during these
Yeah.
podcasts, and we need help. So
As we've gotten our advice as we pick our guests that will help us.
So we've had a lot of guests this year. Any ones that stick out for you? Any themes that stick out for you?
Really good. We learned a lot.
Yeah.
We learned about what can we say? The coxswain. I didn't know what that was.
Exactly.
That was pretty neat to
Yes.
get into the boating world and get into the rowing world of things. That was fantastic. That was really cool to learn that.
Yeah. And I think it's for us, so just so you folks know, we're trying to make sure these podcasts hopefully will inspire you. You get to talk about really cool people, really cool topics, get educated on certain areas. But for us to be able to learn things and see people like Coxon, like what is that world like? Yeah. What we have no idea, and to see the kind of you would see something sort of casually as you walk by. Oh, there's a rowers out there, and there's a person on the end of the boat. That person's got a pretty important job, and it's a lot of pressure, and to be able to dive into that sort of understanding of that and get some sensitivity around that, I think like you said, is a fun thing to do. Yeah,
it's kind of neat. So we're trying to educate ourselves as long as and get good content for everybody else as well. So hopefully everyone's enjoying that as well. What did you pick up this year?
Yeah, I think same thing. We had JP on, which was serendipitously just happened to run into the guy and then find out, I'm a Cat 1 road cyclist, and then I'm happen to be a ref. And the idea is, again, we see refs all the time.
Yeah.
But to be able to have a conversation about how you get into that, what's the complexities around that, what do you need to do to be prepared for that, that's always fun. I think the second one is, we had a couple returning guests, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Having Team Magic come in.
Yeah.
We at a point in time, the last time we talked to him, it was right after COVID. How do you get a triathlon program together, and how do you get people to show up, and what are those complexities, and then be able to fast forward and say, okay, what are you doing now? It's been a year later, now that things have settled in, how's it going? Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to report after we did our episode, I think they announced about a month ago they're doing a women's only triathlon.
Yes, they were able to get a sponsor and put that all together. So next May, I believe that end of May of 2023, they will have the all women's triathlon here,
and I feel partially responsible for that. So.
Yes, absolutely.
If it wasn't for our podcast, they probably got that.
We'll take a little credit.
Yeah, there you go.
A little credit.
What else?
Wow, it was a good, busy year. And one of the things, as we mentioned, we haven't talked much about what we've been doing training wise. So let's start with you, Kenny.
Okay.
What do you got? What did we do? We had an exciting year. Well, you had it end. We know the end of the year.
Yeah.
Last year's Ironman California didn't go.
Yeah, so
it just didn't go.
Yeah, so for those
anybody.
So my big deal is I want to do Ironman. So Ironman is sort of the golden one for me. I've had a really rough couple of years trying to get back into Ironman. So and we can talk about that in a minute. But so last year's goal was to do Ironman California. It was the inaugural race. It was in Sacramento. I lived in Sacramento for 20 years. I was like, great. I've rode those trails. I've run that run. I know it. It's going to be fantastic. And then what they call bomb cyclone hits, are basically the equivalent of a Cat 3 hurricane in California, first time in 100 years, happens to land on this Sunday of the stupid race. And sure enough, wipes, 3,000 people, don't get a race that day.
Yeah.
And of course, it's beautiful the next day. It's like 75 and sunny, like breeze. It's like, of course. So we had to postpone it to this year. So this year's goal, the big A race, was to get back to California and race it. And in order to be prepped for that, my B race, my other big race, was the half Ironman in Oregon. So those are the two that were on the list. Everything else was just sort of race for fun or race just to kind of do it. I don't know if I did many races at all except for those two.
No, we were looking at a couple different races for you to do.
Yeah.
And the 70.3 seemed to be the one that would fit best.
Yeah.
Timing wise, it was out there. It was one that I think worked really well for you.
Yeah. And the course itself too, it was a similar course to what it was in California. It was in Oregon. I grew up in Oregon, then moved to California, spent 20 years there. So for me, it was, again, coming back to a familiar haunt. Yeah. So that was fun. So those are the two I had on hand. Now, I think if anybody's a fan of the program and watches the podcast, I ask a lot of behavioral questions, simply because I was at a point where when I moved to Tennessee, I didn't have a lot of coaching going on, and my swimming devolved to the point where I was struggling on the swim to the point where I would get pulled out of races. So I did a half Ironman in Wisconsin 3 years ago, had a DNF because I gassed out. I just didn't, my shoulders hurt every time I trained, so I wouldn't train as much. So hired this guy, and started working on swimming, and swimming was sort of the priority. It wasn't the idea to swim fast. The idea was to swim efficiently. Hi, sweetie.
And that's Rosie. Sorry, Rosie. Rosie's the shop dog.
I know. Thank you very much. I was feeling kind of needed the love too.
Rosie, over here, baby. Rosie likes laps. So if you come for a bike fit, you will meet Rosie, and Rosie will.
Yes, and she saw the sensitivity in my voice on how I was a pain, and she thought she'd come.
Yeah. She's a therapy dog.
It was a real struggle. I mean, I was debating if I should be doing triathlons. Maybe I should stick to duathlons. I mean, I'm just not a swimmer, and this doesn't feel good. So we worked on it.
We worked on that a lot last year.
Yeah.
We did a lot of mental training, open water swimming, a lot of things that got you in the ballpark. I think one of the bigger challenges was once it got postponed.
Yeah.
How do you keep that momentum up? I think that was a huge challenge, and I think that was interesting. And we talked to Dr. Tim White, the sports psychologist, that we got. There was a lot of interesting things why we were finding our guests going through that.
Yeah, yeah. So I ended up signing up for the half. It was in July in Oregon. I needed a win. And what I mean by win is I needed a successful, solid race.
Yeah.
Hey folks, when you do races, don't try new equipment 4 weeks before a race. So I decided to I wear Hoka's.
Yeah.
I decided to get another pair of shoes, which completely destroyed my calf. So I went into the half Ironman with basically a tendinosis or tendonitis in my calf. I knew it was going to be a problem, but the important part was the swim and the bike. So show up to Oregon, 70.3 in July. It's in the Willamette River. The river is so fast you can't stand up in it. So like it was like the only way you can get faster is if you went through a waterfall. Like that was the only way this thing was going to be.
Yeah.
So the start of the race,
Yep.
had a little bit of a panic attack just because everything was kind of going fast and going crazy, and I missed the buoy, and the river's moving. I kind of calmed myself down, and I had a tremendously good swim. It was, and I needed that. That was the thing I needed.
Yeah.
So to your point, we're talking to all these sports psychologists. We're talking to people about how do you push through those things, those fears. How do you push through those? And this is the one where if it didn't work, this was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
The good news is it worked. I came out of the water happy.
Yes.
The bike was great. The run was not good because my calf was not good, but I was in my mindset that I knew that.
Yes.
So, and it's 82 degrees. It's beautiful. You're in Oregon. I mean, I'm in a park with, it's my gosh.
It's fantastic.
I saw 3 deer. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, it's hard to be mad when you're staring at beautiful fields and, deer frolicking through.
Yeah.
So the half Ironman was probably the single best confidence booster for me to be able to say that I can do the swim.
Yeah.
What I would say before any race is once I get past the swim, I should be fine. Well, if I get done with the swim, then I'll be fine. That was my mantra. When I got done with the Oregon, it was no longer that. I didn't need that as a mantra.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, well, we're gonna do this in the swim and then the bike, and then what do we worry about? It's no longer like, am I gonna be able to finish? I know I'm gonna finish.
Yeah.
So fast forward to October, and I'm in Ironman, California, right here.
And the timing for that race being the B race in July, he came back really focused and really pumped, and we got into the next level of training that took him to the next level.
Yeah, and lesson number 2 is, when you do these B races, especially when you have a bib on, there's something when you're in a race that's just, you're inside with a bunch of people. It's, you're racing, right?
Yeah.
And you can practice all you want, but the things start coming to reality when you do those B races.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this is what I got to work on. Oh, I see, this didn't work out the way it did. This worked out fantastic. My fuel on the bike, my nutrition on the bike, I did a great job on that. So don't mess with that.
Yeah.
The swim went really well. Okay, don't mess with that.
Yeah.
Right? So what are the things we got to work on?
Yeah.
And that does 2 things, right? It gives you confidence that you can do these things. And the second thing it does is it allows you to focus on those things. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
So go into October. No bomb cyclone, thank God. But there was a high wind advisory.
Yeah.
So
Which is
California's just
typical.
designed to kill me.
Yeah.
I think is what it is.
California
So,
has winds. We knew it was going to be winds. If you pick a
Yes.
flat course, know that there's probably going to be winds.
yeah. And here's what's funny. So like I said, I spent 20 years in California. I did a double century in Davis. It's a 200-mile bike ride in one day. That was supposed to be in, I think, May, end of May. Ended up being over 100 degrees in May. We're like, this is ridiculous. It was 75 degrees the weekend before, 75 degrees the weekend after, 107 that day.
Yeah.
And so we did it the next year going, surely it's not going to be the same. It was 108. I go to do the California International Marathon, which is one of the biggest ones on the West. Beautiful weather. What happens? 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds, just storm coming through. It was thousands of people like penguins, like huddled together before the start of the thing. It's like, I don't know what it is with these races in California, but I keep picking the stupid weather issues. And sure enough, beautiful on Saturday, beautiful on Monday. Sunday for race day, 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds, 35-mile-an-hour gusts. I was going to get a PR on the bike, and that just went away quickly.
Yeah.
So good news is, got into the water. The water was the best part. Again, it went from, I don't even know if I'm going to get out of the water, to the water was my fastest one. I recorded a PR.
Yeah.
Even getting a cramp and had to get onto a kayak for a second.
Yeah.
But got out of the water, got on the bike, was doing fantastic on the bike, turned around and just
And hit the wind.
Wall of wind.
Yeah.
Just a wall of wind. I was targeting a sub 6-hour bike ride, ended up getting 7 hours because of the wind. And it destroys you.
You watched everybody's time on the turnaround all of a sudden just fade off. All their speeds just dropped off. We were following a bunch of athletes and watching everybody. You just knew what everybody was going through.
Yeah. It was like 21 miles on the way out, 12 miles on the way back.
Yeah.
And I'm passing people at 12 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Like I'm dropping people at 12.
I'm sure there's some great stories of people really suffering through that.
Yeah, and you see the photographers, they're like taking pictures of you, and they're just like, okay, get out of the frame. All right, we got you. I'm like, I can't go any faster. I'm trying to get out of the frame. And so I have 48 shots of me on the bike because they just, going 12 miles an hour, it's easy to grab a shot. So got to the run, ended up learning the biggest lesson, which is you kept telling me, work on your hamstrings and your glutes because you got to engage those. Those did not get engaged. I spent a majority of my time on my quads and my calves. So early into the run, it turned into a walk. Yeah. Again, there's got to be a mindset. So the mindset change that was really big for me this year is.
So we knew it was questionable, though. We knew
correct.
We knew the calf was questionable. We knew the run was going to be whatever.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah, the calf has been a problem, so I never had an opportunity really to get the runs. And the furthest run I think I got was 12 miles. Yeah. And then I had to take a 2-week break because of calf issues. So I never really got the run in. My VO2 was off the charts. I had no issue with that. Yeah. So the irony of the whole thing is the calf was perfectly fine. It was my quads that gave out. Yeah. And my quads gave out because I just spent most of my time being quad dominant. Yeah. So that's something I got to work on for next year, is to be able to start engaging different muscle sets. So you learn from each one of these. Yep. There's 2 things that I learned, I think, to wrap it up. So, the half this year, the full was, it's successful. I got the medal, got the swag. There's never enough swag you can get, just so you're clear. 2 lessons I learned. One of them was just you have to accept what the day is going to give you, right? And you can't control what you can't control. And I know that sounds easy and obvious, but look, I can't make that wind go any slower. I have no capability. My only capability I have is how I react to it.
Yes.
So the first thing I needed to do was get the mindset like, hey, I'm going to get a medal. I'm going to finish this thing.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is, okay, I can turn myself inside out for maybe a time that's going to be 10 minutes faster over a really long race, or just accept what I have, kind of hunker in and start doing the work.
Yeah.
And you parse the work out. I don't have a 56-mile bike ride. I have two 28-mile bike rides, and then I get to turn around and do it again.
Yeah.
So the 112-mile bike ride was a section of 4 28-mile sections.
Yeah.
And so that's how I had to do it. The first 28 is going to be fantastic. The second 28 sucked. Third 28, redemption, get my food back. The last 28 was, by the way, peak wind for the day was the last 28 miles. And you just like, this is it. It sucks, but hunker down, get through it. It's going to be 2 hours of crap. So let's just get through it. So one of the things is just to accept that thing, right? Accept, my calf wasn't ready to go. So know that, okay, if I'm going to walk, then again, I'm in California. I'm walking the American River Trail next to a beautiful, trail run.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to walk it, but guess what? I'm going to enjoy it and walk it. I'm going to say thank you to the volunteers. I'm going to, just enjoy the moment. I can't do anything else.
Goal number one is to finish whatever race you're doing,
Correct.
an A, B, or C race. It's always to finish the race.
Yeah.
That should be your number one goal.
Exactly.
You can set some other personal timing and goals for the swim, bike, and run, the overall race, but know that when push comes to shove, you want to finish it.
Yes.
Like, it's not going to go the right way. That's why I always say triathlon, it mimics real life like the most of all the sports, because you can plan. You can plan all you want, and yet it never goes the way you want.
Yeah,
like
and
it's
I think
always something that's shifting. It could be a person, it could be a mechanical, it could be the weather. Who knows?
Yeah, and I'm competitive. I had a number in my head. Like if everything were to go well, I was looking for like a 12-hour Ironman pace, which is within my capability to do.
Absolutely.
The swim went fantastic. The bike would have been fantastic if it wasn't for the rain or for the wind. So everything it just happened to do what it is. I think the second and last thing I'll talk about is the idea that what makes triathlons kind of interesting, and I know you're going to talk about your races, which are, mine are cute and adorable compared to what he did this year. But you talk about people that are running marathons, and there's no knock on marathons. Marathons are very tough to do. But, you're dealing with a run, right? You look back on these Ironmans, and what makes them so fun and entertaining and intriguing and crazy is you get up, you have to worry about weather. You have to worry about the water conditions, if the water's flowing or not flowing. Yeah. Do I do a wetsuit or I don't do a wetsuit? Where are the buoys? How are the other people going to be? Where do I line up? You get done with that, then you got to figure out a bike. Like, is it wind or no wind, or what are you going to wear with, because it's sunny out? Yeah. And so it's just the compound effect of multiple sports shoved into one. Yeah. There's so many variables that can go wrong. The fact that you do get it done is a miracle. The fact that people are getting done in PRs is a miracle. Yeah. That's what makes that sport to me kind of fun. I've done marathons before, and again, it's hard to do marathons because you're trying to figure out if you want to do a negative split or where the hills. But this thing, I think we had a guest on that talked about it. We deal with all three elements: water, earth, and air, right? And it's just kind of that, and you have to think of all of that. And you should see the crap I had I had wetsuits I had to bring with me, helmets. I had to bring my pedals.
The gear. Part of the reason we do it is for the gear.
Yeah, I mean,
right? just that alone.
Got to the airport, barely getting under the 50-pound rule for my bag, and it was just all my crap. And then I got to buy the food when I get there. So, I'm really happy with the season. I'm not satisfied with my time. I never will be. Yeah. But I'm super happy that I got to experience those two races. Those races were fantastic.
They were great.
I'm just, now I get to spend the winter, lifting weights and figuring out how to get those hamstrings and glutes to be able to be better, to be able to remove those barriers for next year. And that's what I'll do.
And that's what the off season's about. The off season is about some unstructured training. Yeah. Just a few weeks of just being active, do different things, climb, hike, do anything different. And then basically start figuring out what your limiters are. What were the weaknesses that you have? Work on the weaknesses. Spend your winter starting to work on those, and that'll just improve year over year.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to figure out pickleball because I haven't played
you haven't played
pickleball before.
Yeah.
Right.
Get some lateral movement.
Yeah,
going.
it was the weirdest thing too.
And reaction times.
Yeah, it's like I
Reaction times
don't.
and lateral movement.
Yeah, and I don't know what to do with myself. Right.
Yeah.
I spent 11 months and 6 days a week, sort of in training, and then all of a sudden I'm telling my wife, I'm like, "You want to go to brunch?" She's like, "What?"
What?
I'm like, "Yeah, Sunday. I'm not going to do a 4-hour bike ride. Do you want to go to
Yeah.
brunch?" She's like, "Really?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying that either." So that'll last for about a month, and I'll get back to work. But
Yeah, then you'll
then
be
we'll
back
go
at it again.
So,
but-
so yeah,
No.
so
It was a great
Ironman
year.
was mine. You decided to take a different route. You decided Ironmans are cute and adorable. Any idiot can do that. So
No.
what were your two?
I had a big limiter that I needed to work on was running. My running. I've always loved running. It was kind of more natural for me. It wasn't that I was good at it. It was just something that seemed to come a little bit more naturally and not as powerful on the bike. Really got to a point where I was enjoying the swim. But the last race I did in 2019, I destroyed both feet and both legs. I ran on an injury, which you shouldn't do. And ended
you know
up,
better.
Yeah, and I know better, but it was a big race. It was Ultraman World Championships. I went back, and the day 3 is a double marathon. I had a broken heel. I had a fractured calicanus and a high ankle sprain. And I ran through that, which almost ruptured my Achilles on the opposite foot. So
Do not do this at home.
this was something I kind of knew,
Yeah.
like I was either going to finish my career, and end everything or, whatever. So regardless of the pandemic happening, I had to take a year off. I couldn't even walk the dogs for about 6 to 8 months. I needed like boots on both feet type of thing. So this was really, it was a pretty poor decision, but there's other reasons for why I did it. But anyway, so my thinking while I'm sitting on the couch nursing some injuries and trying to figure out how to, like, I couldn't even swim because I couldn't kick my feet, I really wanted to focus on my run. And the reason my run has kind of failed is because I had little injuries here and there that I kept kind of working around or not letting them heal properly. I would get 80% to 90%, and then I would go race and continue racing. So that's one of those things where once in a while you need to do a reset,
Yeah.
right? You don't want
And
to
that's hard to do,
You
right?
don't want to take the 2 weeks off now.
Yeah.
But so I ended up taking 2 years off. So
you just accumulate 2 weeks.
you got to
and
think
then-
about
yeah.
that when we sit there and when coaches sit there and talk to you about, no, don't do anything for 2 days or 3 days, and you really want to keep training. No, don't do that, because that just grows into something bigger down the road. So
a really good point.
that's the like I did it for you. You don't have to go through that again. So I
Way to take one for the team.
Totally. As a complete experiment on myself. So the focus was the run. So I got back to strength training. I went back and really hit the weights hard to build up a balanced body, a balanced stature and set. So I chose to throw a 100-mile trail race on there because
Nice.
I figured that would be like I would have to focus on the run. There's no way around that. I've never done that distance before. I love trail running. I was looking for something kind of epic. And it just so happened to pop across. My wife sent me a video. She said, "Oh, we should go hiking in this area." But it was a video of a 100-mile race, the No Business 100, not too far away from here in Nashville, only about almost 3 hours away. And that was what I signed up in January for a October race. So that was
10 months?
yeah. So
So-
that was it. Yeah.
Question number 1 on this one is, why 100? Like, would 50 didn't feel satisfied? I mean, I'm always curious about why
I've
the
done the
100.
double marathons at the Ultramans. So I've done a couple of those. I know I can run 54 miles on a road.
Got it. So 100 was a goal
100
that-
was just, I mean, I've never gotten a belt buckle before.
Yeah.
Like, you get a belt buckle. We're here
Funny
for
how we
these
race
type
for
of
stuff,
things.
right?
Yeah, it was neat. It was different. And once again, it was trail running. So
I'm sorry, 36
kinda
hours
lined
of
up.
sheer pain. It's like, and you get a belt buckle.
get a
Like,
belt
well,
buckle.
why didn't you say that? I mean,
Yeah.
of course I'm going to do that.
I was in for the belt buckle. It was like I said, I didn't know if I could run this distance.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know if I could actually run the distance, and I figured this would be a great setup to it. So I did a sprint try and was working on speed through the spring. I did one sprint try here that went well. picked up my age group, won
Hey,
my
way
age
to
group, which was fun. And then I realized that I had to just focus on running,
Okay.
which was fine. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I didn't get out on the bike. I was really kind of disappointed. I didn't do much else besides run because I was running 5 days a week. The training for these things is pretty epic. Went up to do a couple of training runs on the course itself, which was good because it was highly technical, 14,000 feet of climbing. And then figured out I needed some longer distance races in between. I just found one down in Anniston, Alabama, in the heat of the night, 100K. So here's a race that's 62 miles.
Great.
It fits into my training plan. It was in August, so it was kind of a nice setup and a nice spot for it. Plus, it accomplished a couple of things. It had 8,000 feet of climbing.
Wow.
So that got me the elevation that I needed to get. It was a 25K loop, so it got to do it 4 times, which made it easier to crew.
Yeah.
I just had one substation, and
this is a practice for you. So being able to have that at every 25 and say, okay, that worked.
Yeah,
that
so
work.
I can test things.
Yeah,
I can try different. I tried different socks. I tried different, different nutrition, and went through that. Plus, it was overnight.
Yeah.
And I'd never ridden or driven or
Run?
whatever the sport was that I was supposed to do. I've crewed overnight for ultra races, but I've never actually been the guy doing the running.
Yeah.
So that was the other trick that we were trying to figure out. So, and it went well.
Great.
It went great. I had no issues. We worked on things. I figured out one pair of socks that does not work for trail running. Right? I know that they're great road socks, but they are not the trail socks. I figured out my trail socks. I figured out my trail shoes. I had everything set. It went really well. I think I ended up. There was a lot of DNFs. It was hot.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, August. At night, even at night, I was one of the few people that didn't jump over any copperheads, which was cool.
So when you do these, marathons are a little bit different. Usually it's around nutrition or especially road marathons, right? It's like you're trying to do nutrition's turnover. What are those things that you have to be a lot more cognizant with a trail run and a trail run at that distance? What are those?
Nutrition.
Is it nutrition?
It's all nutrition. It's nutrition at that point and pacing. You need to have a completely different mindset for the pace. And when you start and sit and think about it, in my head it was like 62 miles, 100K. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to wrap your head around. But the way the race was laid out as a lollipop, so you went out 2.5 miles to a water station, and then it was another 2.5 to 3 miles to a main aid station, which was then 5 miles to the next aid station, which was then like 3 miles back to the water station, and then back to there. So I can run 2-3 miles, right? I can run 5 miles. So I just went aid station to aid station and just practiced doing that. You power hike up the hills, and then you run the flats and the downhills and just kind of pace yourself out and get into a nice groove. But the key is eating early and eating often. And then finding the foods that work for you that don't shut your stomach down. So I go to natural foods. I go to potatoes. They had quesadillas that were great. Right. Becky puts on a fantastic race down there. They did a really good job. The aid stations, the 2 big aid stations plus the main one were fantastic. The people were great all night. At 3 o'clock in the morning, they're dancing and singing and doing everything to keep you alive. I mean, it's a really great scene. Going through that. So that was the big key. I was on pacing and nutrition. Yeah. And that was my main focus for that.
And then, so explain to folks sort of the outline of the No Business 100. So what makes it unique and different? What was the elevation? What was the challenge?
So one big loop through 4 different parks, 3 state parks, and 1 national park or recreation area. So Big South Fork. We start in Pickett State Park in Tennessee. In the central time zone, and then we cross into the eastern time zone as we get across.
That won't mess with you.
Yeah. You really had to watch, set your watches not to move ahead, and then get into. There's a bunch of different things with this. This No Business name came about because there's a section in. I think it might be in Kentucky or eastern Tennessee that was referred to and called No Business because the miners that were working through this area felt they had no business being there.
And then, of course,
that will tell you how rugged it was. It was extremely technical. There were staircases and ladders over rock. There's bouldering. There were water crossings. It just has everything. Brian, the race director, created this race. This is the 6th year I think they've had it. It is a Western States qualifier because it is that badass. Just to showcase the area.
Yeah.
The big South Fork National Park and Recreation area is fantastic. It's gorgeous. And we were there right at the height of fall, right? Yeah. So trees, all beautiful colors, everything. It was absolutely stunning. It was gorgeous. So here is another different thing. There's about 15 aid stations. You have crew, can only get to about 6 of them. And one of them is a loop. You actually hit the aid station, you loop out 6.7 miles, and then you're back to that same aid station before you head off into the darkness again at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. And so that was fascinating. And that was another one where it was chunk it down, right? Yeah. There was no run that was longer than 10 miles. 9.7, I think, was the longest rough distance between aid stations. And it was back to making sure you eat early, often, and then pacing and get to the aid stations.
So it's, if you recall, it was 14,000 feet of climbing.
14,000 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
Around
running,
around that.
Right. I've done that on a bike, and I hated every second of it. And then you had like 7 rivers. You had to fjord. Did you fjord?
That was close.
Were you fjording?
There was close to 15 water crossings. I would say the first bunch in the beginning, the water levels were low enough that we could skip across on rocks. But as we got to the last half of the race, you were knee deep climbing through some of this stuff. There was no way around it. In fact, one of the second to last aid station, it was on the other side of the river. Yeah. And you just had to wade across the river. You had to check in, you get whatever, and then wade back across again and then start running again. So worried about feet. So feet care, nutrition and foot care is the biggest thing. The people that I talked to that didn't finish this race multiple times all had foot issues and had issues where blisters, wet feet, dealing with all of that. So that was a whole experiment for me through the summer, was experimenting with what works on my feet, what's going to keep it from blistering, what's going to go through there. And it went mostly good. I went, didn't have any issues.
So how many hours did you have to finish?
So
and how many
33-hour cutoff because of the elevation. So you get a 33-hour cutoff. My goal was to try to stay within, was to get closer to 30 hours. That would require me to be somewhere, around an 18-minute mile average pace overall for the whole thing. I ran into a few issues with my feet, only in the fact that when I switched shoes at one point, and I stayed within the Hoka family. Yeah. But I had older.
Brought to you by Hoka.
I had older shoes that I started in and ended up finishing in, and I went to a newer set of my Speed Goat 5s, and they, because of the elevation and the angles that we were on, going up switchbacks and things, it just beat the outside of my ankles up. Yeah. They were as big as softballs, and they hurt like hell. Yeah. So on the technical descents and things, I had to go really slow. Which dropped me a little bit, but I was able to make up some time at certain points, and ended up coming in with 31 hours and 51 minutes. So I was comfortably in front of the cutoff. Yeah. And I was managing that. Basically, it was to finish. Yeah. I didn't care if I came in at 32, 59, 59. It didn't matter to me at that point. And my crew, my buddy Jerry, flew in from Massachusetts to crew me. He was the one that when the sun came out the next morning and I got to see him, he was like, okay, here we are. We're 45 minutes ahead of the cutoff. Good. Okay, great. Quick change of socks, get some nutrition, get everything going, change out of, the nighttime stuff and get moving. And then I made up 15 minutes. So the next one I was an hour in front of the cutoff. Then the next one I was an hour and 15 minutes in cutoff. So I was able to push through to about an hour and a half in front. Yeah. And then we had really, really technical, that last 4.7 miles, probably 2.5 of that was super technical water crossings. A little slipping and sliding because it was climbing up embankments and things. And so I just brought it home, basically. I think,
one of the things that the theme between sort of, when you have distances over, multiple hours, like Ironman or your 100-miler or your 100K runs, is your mind will get overwhelmed with the bigness of it. Yes. And
quickly.
And I think newer folks that want to get into endurance stuff just need to remember it's not 140.6 or it's not a 100-mile run. It is a 5-mile run to the aid station. Yeah. And you have to think of it that way. Yes. Like I said, on the bike, it was 28 miles. I'm not doing 112. I'm going 28. Yeah. And then I'm going to turn around and do another 28. Yeah. You're going to go to the aid station. Yeah. and then I'm going to go to the next aid station. And then before you know it, you look back and you start stacking those up. And that mindset's really, really important because the bigness of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in walking mode where I didn't know if my quads were gone. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got 13 more miles to do this. I have to walk for, no, I don't. What I have to do is I have to walk to mile 18.
Yeah.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk another 4, and that's going to take me an hour. And I'm going to walk to 22, and that's going to take an hour.
Yeah.
And then from 22 to 26, I'll be done, and that's going to be another hour. So you just start. You have to start playing mind games with that.
And I always say that I coach people on that. Like in the swim, get to the buoy. Don't get to the finish of the swim. Get to the buoy, because if you don't make that buoy, then the rest of it doesn't matter. So why waste your time worrying about the stuff that's down the road when it's right in front of you, right? Yeah. I had concentrating on a trail run. You're looking at your feet, right? Where are you putting your foot? If you're looking way up the road, you're going to trip and fall, and then your race is over. Yeah. Right. It's small things like that you really just need to just chunk it down. Sitting there trying to think about running 100 miles nonstop was like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Yeah. But it was, and it's all about business, right? You also don't think, wow, I got this big hill coming up. You don't put any negative thoughts in your head, any limiters in there. Is, oh my God, it's so windy. Oh my God, it's so, it's this, it's that. It is what it is. Yep. Be in the moment and just do what needs to be done. Yep. Like you need to push a little bit more. You're going to go slower because of the wind. Yep. Boom. But that's all you can do. You can't wish for something else to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I tried to.
Yeah. We were all trying for you. We were all wishing.
Please, Lord.
Wishing does
nothing.
Please
make this wind go away. Yeah. But, because when I turned around, I mean, it was shocking. Like when I turned around on the bike, it was like 12 miles an hour. I never do 12 miles an hour. Yeah. But, you keep the same pace. I know, like on the second time, I knew what was coming. Yeah. So now I was prepared. Yeah. And I knew in 5 miles I had a 1 mile reprieve because it's going to turn right. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't need to do 28. I just need to do 5. Yeah. Right. And so the other thing I think, and I'm, so for people that are watching this or listening to this and think we're crazy people because we do these endurance things. Yeah. I mean, you kind of do these things because you want to test your limits. Right. And so couple of things. First one is, you just chunk it out and get into manageable chunks. You do that with life. You do that with anything else, right? I think the second thing is, how do you manage, for lack of a better term, how do you manage pain? How do you manage, like, my ankle's getting beat up? How do you manage sort of, okay, this is starting to hurt? I mean, obviously you got to deal with it, but how does it not become... And when I say pain, I don't mean an acute pain where you should be doing stupid things like, I don't know.
There are two things.
I want to be really clear on that.
Sharp pain is no go.
But I mean, just like that soreness that, that, oh, I'm getting a blister or I've got, muscle soreness. How do you try to work through that?
The best way to handle that is kind of with a stoicism mentality or a Taoist mentality on the philosophical side of things, is that you have to actually address it. Mm-hmm. You have to mentally go, oh, my ankle hurts. Yeah. My ankle hurts. You need to focus on it for a minute so that you kind of admit that it's there. And that allows you can even give it a name, right? And then that allows you to push it back in your mind and not dwell on it. But if you try not to think about it, it's going to kind of come back on you. It's going to be there, like running on a broken foot, right? Yeah. Every step was like a shotgun blast to my my heel, and that was one that I almost couldn't put away. Yeah, because it was bordering on sharp pain that you shouldn't be doing anything, right? But the normal pains and aches and things that you have, you just go, okay, this really hurts. Yep. This is sore. I understand what it is, what's going on. I realize where I'm at with that. Now I'm just not going to focus on it. Yeah. And then set it apart. It takes practice. This is not something that just happens every day. But as an endurance athlete, it's something that you can work on it, right? Yep. How do you, like, aside from putting on a Netflix movie while you're on the trainer, when you're out in the race, how do you deal with that? Exactly. What do you do? What techniques do you use to kind of get through that?
So one of the most fascinating things I've watched, if anybody has watched the Netflix documentary on the Barkley Marathons, right? Yeah. Go watch it if you haven't watched it. It's insane. It's probably one of the most insane races ever, right? Yeah. In the Barkley Marathons. And what I found, there was an epiphany that hit me. Yeah. It was a runner came in, I think it was after his third loop meaning his third marathon distance in the nastiest conditions you can think of. and his toe had a really bad sort of blister on it. And he had his wife and his crew that were helping him. Yeah. But he was looking down at his toe. He's like, hey, that toe hurts. Not I hurt.
That toe hurts.
That toe hurts. And he put his toe in the third person.
Yeah.
And it fascinated me. It's like, as an endurance athlete or people trying to get to endurance athlete, you have to sort of isolate that it's that part of my body that's hurting. My body's not hurting. That toe is hurting.
That is, yeah.
And so I've been, to your point, been practicing that. So when my quads gave out, it's like, well, my quads are gone. Okay. But the rest of me, my hamstrings are fine. Yeah. I can walk. Yeah. I can't run. If I try running, it'll just completely destroy it. Yeah. But I know I can walk. Yeah. And I know if I just keep a good pace. I mean, I walk fast. I rocked a 14:30 pace, which is like, I looked like Sasquatch going through this.
Yeah, I can't walk that fast.
So, I mean, I walked fast. So I wasn't like farting around walking. I was walking.
Yeah.
But you just sort of say, hey, it's the quads. Everything else. So I'm checking the rest of my body. My hands are fine. My head's fine.
And that's it.
My calves are remarkably fine. I don't know why.
Yeah.
They were gone for 3 months, and now they suddenly come back. But you just sort of go, okay, it's over here. The pain's over here. Okay, what's the rest of me, and how can I? And sometimes in the middle of a race, you may not have the best form that you want, but you may have the form that you need to kind of relieve the duty of those muscle sets. Yeah. It's not what you want to do, and you'll address it when you're done. But so to me, how I deal with it is I just watch that video. I'm like, how do I make it turn into that thing over there, not my whole being hurts? My whole being doesn't hurt. Yeah. It's my quads.
It's focusing on
and then it becomes a familiar friend if you get it really perverse, right? Because then you're just like,
yeah.
All right, old friend, this hurts.
Let's go.
It's a level 4 in pain.
Yeah.
It's not a sharp pain.
Yeah.
I'm not doing any damage, permanent damage.
Yeah.
If I was doing permanent damage, we'd shut it down.
Yeah.
Right. If it was like torn ACL,
we're not
I'm
pros.
Done.
We're not making any money at this.
Yeah.
Honest,
I mean, if you knew you popped an ACL or something, or if I crashed and it was at a point where things were bad, I dislocated something, obviously I'm going to stop. But unless it goes to that, nothing's going to stop me, right? And that's the other mindset. It's
use that as fuel.
Yeah,
you address that issue. You address that my toe hurts or whatever, and then use that as fuel to turn that negative energy into a positive energy, and kind of go, well, the faster I get done with this thing, the better it'll feel.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too, tell me if this is, I don't know why it's been bothering me lately, but there's these, everyone wants to, what's your why?
Yeah.
I'm doing this to, I'm doing this because what's your why?
Yeah.
It's like, it sounds noble. Like for this one, everyone's like, because when you go, let me back up. The reason why people say, what's your why, is because when you're doing these training and the training is so long, when it's 90 degrees out and you're sweating like crazy and you got another hour and a half of running to do and it sucks, if you don't have something to glom onto, you're not going to do it. So they always say, well, what's your why? Yeah. And I feel like there's this pressure to have this big noble answer on the why.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm in my 50s and I want to, no. It's like I wanted this race and I wanted to finish this race. That was my why. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to finish this race.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
If I have to crawl across the finish line, it's going to get done.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's the why.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be,
and that's perfectly acceptable.
It doesn't, and I think there's this
have to
weird
be
sort of
doing it for a charity or
or this greater
it's
cause.
It's good to have that.
Yeah. As a child,
if that works for you, great.
Yeah,
if it doesn't,
sometimes your why can just be, I want the damn thing. I want to get this damn thing.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I want the medal.
I wanted to know that I could go 100 miles on foot.
That's your why. That's it. It doesn't have to be your big noble.
Why.
Yeah.
During the race, I kind of, if there were any moments, if there's any moments where you start doubting yourself or doubting your why or doubting why you're going through that, then I tend to gravitate towards, well, my wife has put up with a lot with training and stuff like that, and my other friends that have been supportive and all that stuff. So I kind of do it for them at that point. It's like, well, I don't want to let them down because they really believe in me and they do that. But that's a side thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the lowest point of my race career, I would say my participation career is when I was in a wetsuit at the beginning of Arizona Ironman in line. And I looked around. I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like I was in the wetsuit in line. I was supposed to be in the water in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And same thing though. And I was there because I'm like, I spent all this money, all this time, my family has been sacrificing, my weekends because I'm doing this and I should be doing this. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not mentally ready because I didn't care if I finished.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's red flag there, right?
Yeah.
And all my training was kind of lousy.
Yeah.
And I would do like, instead of doing a 2,000 yard swim, I'd do 1,500. Go, well, I can do the other 5. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can do the other 5.
Yeah.
And I just kept doing that. So by the time I got there, it was like, I can't do this. And so I pulled myself out
Yeah.
at the last possible moment. Thank God I did, because I think it would have been a horrific,
Yeah.
soul crushing day.
An even worse experience at
Correct.
it. Right.
Yeah, and people are like, well, it's better to have a DNF, a do not finish, than it is a DNS. Not really, because my DNF
Not
would have been
necessarily, yeah.
more painful than just not starting
Probably
and
more
admitting to myself.
mentally damaging.
Correct, and admitting
in
to
that
myself
sense,
that I
yeah.
shouldn't be there to begin with.
Yeah.
And
But that
so-
takes us to what your morning pre-race routine
yeah,
could be, is looking back at the training. A lot of people keep a training log.
Yep.
It's great to have that, or look at your training
Yep.
peaks, or look at your today's plan, and kind of go through that and look at it and go, look, I did all the work. I deserve to be here.
yeah,
Deserve isn't the right word.
I think you say
I
that.
don't like that, but you can say, like,
Yeah,
I
I earned
I'm
my right to
good.
be here.
I'm
Yeah.
here. I'm going to do well because I have all of this training. Now, if you get to that point and you look back and you go, wow, I really didn't do the training that I
Yeah.
was supposed to, then mentally you're going to go, wow, I'm not gonna do well.
no, and I have to. You said it's a bad word, but that's on my personal level. I have to feel like I earned my way into that start line.
Yeah.
And when I showed up to that race, I did not earn my way
did
into
not,
it.
yeah.
I half-assed my training.
Yeah.
I was out of shape. I was overweight. I wasn't ready mentally.
Yeah.
I showed up because I was supposed to, right? And
'Cause you
I
paid
said
the
I was,
entry
yeah, I
fee.
paid the entry fee and I said I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And so
Book the hotel.
Yeah,
All of that
so-
stuff. Yeah.
when I showed up to California, I was ready because we did the work.
Both
right?
times.
We did the work. Yeah, yeah.
Both times.
times.
He was ready.
I was ready for the
both
first
times.
time.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. So
Yeah.
I felt comfortable going into it, and I
Yeah.
think that was part of it. You need that confidence to know, and that trust to know. Like, to your point, you did the 100K. You trust the fact that, okay, I know this worked. I know my nutrition's dialed in. I know I can do this distance. Now it's just a matter of execution.
Yeah.
So
And that's
any
that's the fun part.
any wacky things you saw during the race, other than the
Yes.
hallucinations?
Yeah. I had a fun morning when the sun came back up. And these, I was thinking back on it because this seemed to happen mostly when I was running by myself. I saw some really cool stuff.
Cool.
I saw boats on the river. I saw dogs and different animals, and none of them were there and existed. The good part is none of them talked back to me or
That's good.
moved. Right as you kind of go through, I think it's in the forest.
Yeah.
With leaves falling. It's beautiful fall, so there's lots of colors. There's lots of
Shapes.
lots of
yeah.
shapes and things that take on different shapes as your mind gets tired, and once you're in the 24-hour mark of nonstop, no rest, no naps, no nothing. It was interesting. It was really. It was kind of cool.
Well, it's good to
But you
hallucinate.
accept it. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw the first thing that I saw that didn't look right. I was just kind of like, I just shook my head, and that was kind of weird. I saw like a space type object that was ended up being bear scat of all
Yeah.
things, right?
Which can get confusing.
And then I saw more of it right afterwards, and I'm like, that's bear scat, and I went,
Wait a minute, that's bear scat.
wait a second. I think what I saw back, this is interesting. So then I started keeping an eye on it, right? Once again, I addressed it and I accepted it. I didn't let
Yeah.
it freak me out.
Yeah.
It was that I started looking for things and I would go, oh, cool. Look, that's a dog howling. It's not a dog. It's a
I
leaf
mean, like you said,
on
the
a
sun's
thing.
coming
Yeah.
up. There's shadows. I
There
like the
was-
fact that you said there's bear scat and you're okay with it. I'd be like,
Yeah.
there's bear scat.
This was bear
Kooky.
country. This was, and we didn't see any I didn't hear any reports and see any, but when we were up there for the training runs, we were stopping on the road while we were driving because the bears were crossing the road.
Awesome.
Like it's black bear country. The good thing is coming from the West Coast where there's brown bears, which are slightly more assertive.
Yeah.
The black bears tend to want to just get the hell out.
Yeah.
So the worst part would be if you ran up and surprised the hell out of both of you.
Yeah.
Or came up on cubs or something. Like, you don't want to run into them. Like, it's just not.
Yep.
It's not a good thing. But the beauty of trail runs is that you run into wildlife. I mean, and most of the time it's copperheads out here.
Yep.
Some rattlesnakes, more rattlesnakes on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And then the bears were pretty prevalent. So that was relatively fresh bear scat. So
Oh,
that
fun.
was kind of like, it was just
I
like
think
I
I'd
knew it
rather
was
see
going
a
to be
dog
there.
shadow. I guess
Oh
is
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
point.
Totally,
So,
totally like the boat that was on the river
Yeah.
in the middle of the
That's funny.
woods.
Any
and some other stuff.
strange, like when you looked at other runners, like, well, that's an odd kind of
No,
thing.
never did. And one of the things we had as markers is there's ribbons in the trees.
Yeah.
And then these little flags that were stuck in the ground, and these were every 0.2 to a half mile. So that was what kept you on the course. So what I started doing, and I started doing this in the nighttime before any hallucinations started or anything, because I got off course on a couple points. Literally, I would touch them to make sure they were real.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that we were going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Like we didn't want to get lost. They had little reflectors on them that your light would pick up, so you'd see something flickering off in the distance, and you go, "Okay, I think we're heading in the right direction." But yeah, it was. I would touch those things to know that they were physically there, and I wasn't kind of
Wasn't
imagining
any
that
like
part.
other runners taking like Jack Daniels or anything that you were
No.
like, well, that's really weird.
No, there
Really?
was none of that. There was none of that. The food was fabulous.
Okay.
Let me just say the homemade chicken noodle soup, homemade
can't beat
potato
that.
soup. There was some bacon. There was a lot of quesadillas, a lot of boiled potatoes, all of the natural foods, and I just ate. Like I
Good.
ate a lot of food, and
If your stomach can do it, I mean, that's
it went fine, and I kept it. Like I would have a bag of potatoes. I had some stuff of my own that I would take. My Picky Bars, of course. I'm a Picky Bars ambassador, so I
Picky
had my
Bars.
Picky Bars. Picky oatmeal, all of that stuff.
Good.
You just kept eating. Like I just kept eating.
and that's really important
Almost
with endurance stuff. Is that fuel is it's,
Especially the longer the distance race you're going to go. You need basically you're fueling now for later, right? For an Ironman, you're fueling on you can't really fuel in the swim, but you get on the bike and you're fueling for the run. It's all about the run in an Ironman or a triathlon. It's all about the run. Everything that you do leading up to that point is about the run.
Yeah, you're either going to make or break it.
Yeah.
Before you even hit the run.
Yeah.
So looking at 2023, anything on the list?
There's a lot of great options on the list. I want to get back to swimming and biking.
Okay.
So there will be some triathlons back in there again. I'm trying to figure out exactly what.
Okay.
Trying to figure out. Also toying about the idea of going back to do the No Business 100 because they do it in opposite directions. And not only do you get a belt buckle, if you do it both directions, you get an extra belt buckle.
No way.
For doing the
Stop
double.
it.
So-
Stop it. 2 belt buckles? Are you crazy?
this does. And
You only have one waist, Tom.
Yeah, I know.
So
How many belts? I don't know.
How many belt buckles do you
which is
need?
kind of funny. Anyway, and there's a couple of really Becky at Dirty Soul races in Alabama puts on some really cool races. So
Cool.
Going back and doing some of those, I'm trying to figure out how I can mix and match. I might do. Last year was more training and less racing.
Yeah.
I think this year might be more racing as training.
Oh, that's fun.
Which would be interesting, just to kind of mix it up a little bit,
Cool.
and just make it fun and excitement for you. What do you got?
Um,
What are you aiming for?
so it's at the time of this recording, I think it's been about 2.5 weeks since Ironman. So it's sort of like, do you want to go do another one? I think if I don't think a full Ironman next year, and the only reason why is I spent all of 2021 getting prepared for one. It takes about 10 to 11 months, and then it didn't happen, and then you flip around and do it again, and it's just the weekends, the 15 to 20 plus hours a week it takes to do that. I don't know if I want to commit myself to a full. So right now I'm looking at definitely going back to the half Ironman in Oregon. Cool. The reason why is it's a beautiful venue. I had a great time. I just wasn't physically at my best. And it's a course where I know I can lean in and have a good time.
Yeah.
I was fast on the bike. The swim was ridiculous. And the run would be really ridiculous if I wasn't injured. So I want to be able to go back to that one. It's just a fun venue, and we have friends that do
Basically,
it.
go
so
for
it's a
time
good,
at this point, right? Push it a little bit more.
And I'm thinking about doing a half Ironman in Florida. I think it's called the Gulf Shores half.
Shores, yeah.
Because I've never done an ocean swim
That's in
before.
May, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about that. But I think to your point, I think next year I may go do a Tough Mudder. I may go, I may do some kind of crazier stuff rather than just purely swim, bike, run. Like I said, I mean, I'm kind of joking about the pickleball, but I think I want to play pickleball this winter just to see what everyone's freaking out about this pickleball thing.
Hey, come over here. My neighbor's got the
Yeah,
court.
and the joke is, I go forward, right? I swim forward, I bike forward, I run forward. I haven't gone lateral in 5 years. I think I'm going to blow an ACL to the second I try to take a side step.
Yeah.
But I don't take side steps. I take forward steps. So, that's why trail runs are kind of fun. I may do, I think you and I are thinking about doing at the end of the year, doing the Bell Ringer 25K just for sheer fun.
Just to finish the year off, right?
Kind of stay healthy kind of stuff. So, yeah, maybe just do more fun stuff. Half Ironmans are fun in the fact that when you're done at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. And so, when you do a full, it's, you're all day, all night, right? Yeah. I got back at midnight, I think.
Which is the joy of doing sprints because you're done before brunch.
Yeah, exactly. So if I do a half.
So it's nice to mix those things up, right?
Yeah,
I got a little bit of that.
Yeah, I got a hazy IPA ready to go and a pizza, for dinner.
And you're set.
And those are kind of fun day events, right? Yeah, and you get done early afternoon and you still feel like you accomplished something, and it's non-trivial. I mean, those are non-trivial to finish either. So, I think that's 2023. Let's just go have fun rather than just heads down, maybe.
Yeah. So it'll be good.
Cool.
So thanks everybody. I hope you got something out of our little update here and go through. Keep up the comments and give us 5 stars, thumbs up, all that good stuff. That as I say, it's my little tagline, right? It helps the algorithms, helps more people find this. We appreciate all your support, and we will catch you on the next one.